أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذي أذهب الله عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي أفوض أمري إلى الله بصير بالعباد. Assalamu alaikum jamiyan wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome everyone to another session into our journey through Quran, where we're trying to go deeper into a very famous ayat, a very famous verse of the Quran, Ayatul Kursi. And the aim over here is to bring alive into our lives this word of God that holds within it secrets that can transform our lives if only we reflect and we ponder and we try to understand its deeper meanings. So last time we were talking about, we've been talking about Allah's name Al-Hayy and Al-Qayyum. And something that I've been meaning to touch upon, which I hope that I can do today and continue to do it in the future classes as well, is the idea of beauty when it comes to life. And we were discussing about the name Al-Hayy from the book The Divine Names by the scholar Rosina Fozia. And in her last lines describing the name of God Al-Hayy, she says, "No one gives the world as much beauty and spirit as artists and mystics, yet nothing is eternal, absolute, or complete but He." Now, she's finishing her talk on Allah's name Al-Hayy with the ideas of beauty and spirit. And he's talking about the fact that no one gives as much beauty and spirit to this world as artists and mystics. So there's this idea of a jamal, a beauty that is connected to life, and al-musawwir, the artist and the mystic. Now, what do artists do is that artists create art and paintings. And what gives real meaning to a painting is the thought that goes behind what you see on the canvas. And I relate to this a lot because I paint and I'm an artist. So what I see again and again when I'm working is that there are these ideas that I want to express. There is something that is within me that I want to show through my expression on the canvas. And the reality that lies within me cannot be shown as it is, because the only person, the only entity who will ever experience that reality in its complete truth is only going to be me, because of all the faculties, because of the inner faculty of emotions and clarity of thought and my upbringing and my nature and my nurture and everything that makes me who I am. Only I will be able to perceive that in its complete, entire truth. But what I can do is that I can give it some medium of expression. I can give it some way of being shown to others to say, oh, you know what, this is the message I want to give. So what happens is that when we want to do that, we use the help of symbols. And we say, this particular shape or size or color or image means something to me. And so we say that, for example, if purple is my favorite color, I can use purple to show my happiness or my joy towards something which is my favorite. In that way, a lot of these symbols come together in an artist's painting to depict a deeper message. And so the reality is that there is a superficial, there's a facade, there's a face to something, and then there's an essence to something. There's a reality to something. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran says, wherever you turn is the face of God. So wherever we're turning and whatever we're seeing in life, there is this superficial, there's a facade to it, there is a face to it, which Allah is saying is my face. That means that the universe, the world we're living in, it's an active place, which is Allah's face. Now, when you're looking at my face right now, what does my face say to you? It is giving you a message because I can speak. There's a mouth in my face. I can see. So that's what the face has, that it can see. My face also gives me an identity. So face is the only thing that will tell you one person apart from the other, right? And so face has these qualities, which is just the surface, just the outer recognizing factor for the essence of something. In that same way, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing is that he's talking about his face, and wherever you turn is his face. That means that there's an expression, there's a conversation that is being done through this face, through this outer imagery of the universe. And therefore, the universe is alive. It is talking to us, it is speaking to us, it is seeing us, and it is listening to us. It is constantly hearing what we are saying. Where are we saying it? We are saying it in the physical world, and we also speak through our mind, right? And whatever we think in our minds and whatever we say to ourselves is a conversation. And whatever conversation we have over here in our minds, it is a conversation that is going to be reflected in this universe. Because whatever we are thinking, whatever our thoughts are, we are going to create our destiny through it. How is that? Hazrat Ali alayhi salam says, be very careful of what you think, because what you think becomes your habits, and what you create habits, it becomes your character, and your character becomes your destiny. So, in terms of very simple thinking, we can say, yes, I thought of getting something, eating a banana, and then I went and I got a banana. So that became my destiny. I thought of a banana, eating a banana, and I got it. So that's how we see it in a simple way. But what we also have to see is the existence of the essence behind our thoughts. And what actually happens is that the Quran is saying that you only get Laisa insana illa ma sa'a. Insan will only get what he strives for. And we see a lot of times that we strive for a lot of things where we don't get those things. We get other things that we didn't strive for. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in the Quran that make dua. Ud'uni astajib lakum. Ask me and I will listen to you. Right? We have discussed this before. So the idea is that what we're striving for, we're not getting. Sometimes you're getting what we're not striving for. It's something completely different. And we're making dua, and that dua is not coming true. We're getting something different. So what is going on? And what goes on here is the whole idea of our thought. That our thoughts are part of our essence. Our thoughts are part of our deep inner reality, which is the essence behind the face. And just like the human being has a face, but there's a lot going on behind the face, which is our thoughts, the universe too may look very simple, but it is actually reacting to what we are saying. It is speaking to us, it is listening to us, and it is listening to every thought that we are thinking. It is listening to everything we are saying. And so it is very important to understand that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling in the Quran, you only get what you strive for, or you get what you're asking for and what you're praying for, I'm listening. Over here, there's a deeper connection to our essence. And our essence, the subconscious mind, makes up 95% of who we are and what our thoughts are. And that's why scientifically now we say that whatever we think is what we manifest, is what we create in our lives. So if we are not going to be aware of what we're thinking, we are not going to be aware of what thoughts I'm holding within my essence, then I am striving for something subconsciously, and I am asking for something subconsciously which I'm not even aware of. And what I'm asking on a conscious level is just 5% of what I want. And how do I go into that deep inner essence of me is by now becoming aware of what my thoughts are and what my subconscious mind holds. So in life, when we talk about beauty and spirit, we start to realize that there may be an outer face to something, but then there's a spirit, there's a deep inner reality to something. Now, reality of the human being is the essence of the human being, which is the subconscious mind. And there are more aspects to us, but that is a big chunk of what our essence is. It's something like saying that when we are alive and our body is alive, it becomes alive because of something else, some essence, some spirit that gives life. So there is an outer thing, which is the physical body, but we know that there are so many people who are brain dead, whose bodies may be okay, but they are not really alive. And we also know that in a physical body, it is the spirit that gives it life. So there is something deeper within the face. There is something beyond just the physical existence of something that's giving it life, much like a flower, right? A flower is something which has life in it, and when it dies, it wilts, it corrodes, it goes into dust. So teachers are telling us that when the spirit touches matter, it gives it life. And when the spirit touches matter, that aspect, that entity blooms. When the spirit touches matter, that matter blooms. It becomes alive. So as a human being, when do we become alive? When do we say that we're living a life which is full of life? So there's a very famous saying which says, it's not just merely about surviving, it is about thriving. In our life, we don't just have to just go through our life, we have to thrive, we have to bloom, we have to really reach our actualized highest potential. And that is the purpose of our life. To actualize this life means then to complete our beauty, to complete our inner and our outer, to understand the power we hold within us, and then to understand what the universe is reflecting to us and come into a place of unity where we can understand that we are creating our reality. We have a lot of this power that can bring us to a place of understanding that our physicality has a spirit to it, and this universe with its physicality has a spirit to it that is listening and hearing. We are listening and hearing, we are reflecting each other. And that's why we have to make sure that in order to live a fulfilled, actualized life, there's a huge aspect of the spirit that is not ignored. Now, Quran is saying that Allah will not change the condition of a people who don't change what is within themselves. So that is why it is important to say, okay, what is within me that I need to change? Is it just my physical inner needs, that my blood pressure is okay and my sugar is okay and I'm eating okay and my body's okay? No, right? We know that there is something within me that needs to change. What is that thing? Where is that thing that needs to change? And that is what our thoughts are. What we need to change is our thoughts. Now, what are thoughts? Thoughts are of two types. Perhaps there are more types of voices. We've discussed the three voices, the voice of the nafs, the voice of shaitan, and the voice of God. And we've discussed this before, how they sound different. But today I just want to concentrate on two ways of recognizing two voices that we want to recognize. Now, the voices within us form the thoughts within us. Because if we want to observe the thoughts within us, we are constantly going to hear a chatter. These thoughts are talking to us constantly, right? There will be thoughts that will say, you should be ashamed of yourself, what you just did, or how could you do this? Or I mean, even if accidentally, if you drop something in the supermarket, you were walking and you dropped something and a whole pile of cans fell on the floor or something. What is the voice that goes in our head? You're so dumb. Why couldn't you have walked properly? Why couldn't you just see? Why couldn't you just be careful? This conversation ensues within us. And so now what's happening is that there are thoughts that are becoming a voice in our head. And the truth is that these voices within us are coming from a point of origin within us. There is somewhere within us, something within us which is causing such a voice to come. Because for some people, the very same incident could perhaps, with a lot of mindfulness, lead to a different kind of voice, which would be, it's okay, everybody makes mistakes. I didn't do it deliberately. That was not my intention. But it's very hard. In that moment of panic and chaos, we generally don't um, think positive thoughts. We panic, we feel chaotic within us. There's a lot of inner turmoil unless we have been working on our inner world. So the idea of this outer reality and inner reality goes completely deep into our everyday existence and how we deal with our life and what we're saying to ourselves. And it's very important then to understand that in order to live our life to the fullest, for us to be touched by spirit, for that spirit to bring life into my essence, that some people will live a life which is like walking through life as dead people, and then there is a life of people who truly live to the fullest as alive people. It is important that we recognize the essence. From what point of origin am I living? Am I living from a place where the spirit has truly touched me and caused a blossoming and a blooming of my spirit, my soul? Or am I living from a place of this darkness, which is just causing more and more inner death? And that is the quality of our thoughts will determine how alive we are, how beautiful our life is. And so in order for us to live our life to the fullest, to not just exist, but to really thrive, we have to go back to the quality of our thoughts. So the two qualities of voices that I was telling you is, one is that godly aspect, and the other is we can say the shaitani aspect of the voice. And both these voices can be felt within us. Like I said, one will be encouraging and one will be dissuading and very negative and putting you down and all of that. Now, what happens is when the negative voice takes over, the way to detect it is to detect it through the physical changes in our body. And what we will notice in our body is that at a particular point, when the negativity of thoughts is growing within us, we will start to feel certain physical symptoms like heaviness, chest feels heavy, a choking feeling in your throat, difficulty breathing, anxiety, kind of a panic, um, shame, wanting to run away from the situation. Like I said, panic. We start to feel these things when that voice becomes loud and big. And we have to be conscious to watch it, that this is what I'm feeling right now. One thing that I wanted to say, which was brought to my attention from last week's talk, was that when we're going through any mental disturbance, and I had received a question about getting suicidal thoughts, etc., it is very important that we consult experts, counselors, therapists who are good with the work that they're doing. It's very important to take support. It's very, very important to be in the hands of somebody who is a practitioner in mental health, because I'm I think it's really, really important that it was brought to my attention. And I want to say this, that first of all, we should not think that any aspects of any professional career is separate from godliness, because whether it's being a doctor or a lawyer or a counselor or an artist, they're all godly professions. Uh, we should never label it as non-Muslim or Muslim, or godly or ungodly. Mm, just like we would not call a doctor, it's not my concern, right? Because if the doctor is a Muslim or a non-Muslim, the doctor has to do his job. The same way therapists who work with psychology and psychiatry, they are doing their job in understanding. Yes, thank you so much. I have a message in the chat that there are some chemical changes in our body, and these experts in their field, they understand, psychologists or psychiatrists, they understand, they've studied the human mind, they've studied human psychology, they study human body. And while I don't agree that they are the entire solution, they're not the complete solution for any given situation, they are part of the solution. So a psychiatrist will give you medicine, a psychologist will give you therapy, a religious mentor can give you the spiritual side of it, and friends can give you support, family can give you a different kind of love. And together we seek the support that is needed to fully help us recover from whatever situation we're going through. And I say this again and again, that a lot of psychological traumas that we feel, a lot of psychological states that we go through are also spiritual in nature. And psychiatrists have a deep role in helping us in our spiritual journey as well, because there's no separation. And I say this with complete transparency of myself, that I do not ever think twice before going to a therapist. Sometimes I just go when I feel like I need a fresh, to freshen up my self, just to get a space where I can vent, to get some headspace, some guidance, something I'm struggling with, because you want to go to somebody who can give you that wisdom and space to grow, you know. So, and sometimes we can have older people who are more experienced than us counsel us as well. I'm not saying that we dismiss people in our family or friend circle as well, but the therapy that we're talking about is professional therapy, and that cannot be ignored. So while we do everything else, the professional help that we need it, and we should take it, and we should not be reluctant to give it that importance that it needs, um, because we are not just one dimension. We're not just the brain or just the heart or just the soul. We are a complicated being of many dimensions, and it needs its food, it needs its support from so many different dimensions. While we may need love from a loved one, we also need a space to be able to be ourselves. Sometimes we can't do that with family. Sometimes we have friends who get very emotional, we can't be ourselves with them. So somebody who doesn't have an emotional attachment to us can see the picture clearly, have a bird's eye view of our life, and they can be really helpful. Now, a lot of people feel like it's a taboo to take medication for psychological situations or conditions. One of the biggest myths is that if we start going on these medications, we'll get addicted. Yes, unsupervised, self-medication is not recommended at all. But when we go through a proper system of going to a psychiatrist who can monitor our dosages, who know what they're doing, who you've checked and have good reviews, then to put it simply, what the medicine does is that when the mind is over functioning, and when the mind is in an overdrive, so much so that you are physically unable to calm it down through various different holistic techniques and therapy and counseling, then what the medicine does is that it makes the chemicals in our brain balanced, and it gives us that space where if I wasn't taking the medicine and I go to a counselor and I have a counseling session with the therapist, and the therapy is trying to teach me something, or I'm supposed to vent, but I'm just physically unable. My brain is in overdrive. I'm not able to express, articulate, receive information, receive support, and the brain is just blocking itself out, becoming negative, all of that. So what medication does is that it creates that settled stillness at times. It slows you down so that at least you can articulate what you need to say, you can receive what you need to receive. And for a while, the medicine will give you the rest. It will give you that relaxed inner state where now you're capable of getting your energies together to grow. And eventually, doctors will wean you off those medications when they feel you are ready, because now counseling and therapy have become effective because the brain was not in an overdrive. When we're in an overdrive, we cannot hear, we cannot listen, we cannot fathom things, we cannot accept things. And I have been in situations where I have tried to counsel people. I have given them no matter how many talks and practices, breathing, but it's just not effective because there are certain deeper blocks that need to be tackled by real professionals who can use a system of medication with counseling to give you the right path into your inner growth and self-actualization. So it was really important for me to express this. And so what happens is that when we start to go on this journey of self-realization, we understand that there are dimensions within us, there are different aspects to us. And one of the biggest aspects within us is the aspect of self-talk, the inner conversations that we do, and they determine the quality of our life. There's a saying which says that pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. Okay. But when we're in that rut in our minds where we want to blame someone because we're hurting, and we want to put the blame of our hurt onto somebody, then at that time, we don't want to listen to this. We don't want to hear that. We don't want to hear that I'm responsible for my hurt. I don't want to hear that. Don't tell me I'm responsible for the hurt. Why? Because someone else cursed me. Somebody else swore at me. Somebody else said mean things to me. Somebody else, behaved inappropriate with me. Why are you telling me it's my responsibility? Right? So the whole idea that we discussed today initially, that the universe is the face of God that is speaking to us, is part of a deeper reality where the mystics give us this practice, which I've given to you all before as well, is when we say, I am that, right? Now, if somebody hurts us, breaks our heart, can we say, I am that? Now, it's very, 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 very hard. However, what happens is that in life, when somebody goes on the path of this self-actualization and they want to understand their thoughts, they want to understand what is within me that is creating the life outside of me, if they really truly want to come to a place of realizing what is this chaos in my life that is on the outside, something which is hurting me that I'm blaming on XYZ people is coming from a point of origin within me. I am the point of origin within me. The way some teachers explain that is that a woman who is in an abusive relationship, She leaves her husband, and then when she gets married, the man turns out to be exactly the same as the ex in character. um, Dr. Wayne Dyer talks about his mother like that, that his mother was abandoned by his father when he was really small, but then when she remarried, that man was even worse in character. He says that he was like an incarnate of the old person, the ex. Some days, this is my own experience, which I see commonly happening. Sometimes we will have a day when everything goes really well. Whoever I call, they answer in the first go. Wherever I want to reach, I reach perfectly in time. Whatever I need to buy, the shops are open. Whatever I'm looking for, I get it. There are some days like that. And then there'll be days when nobody's answering, nobody's picking up the phone. There will be red lights everywhere, nothing's working out. Wherever you need to reach, you're always late. It's a big mess. So the whole day feels like, what's happening? I'm having a bad day, not a bad experience. I'm having a bad day. Why is that? Because, you know, a realization happens which says, wait a second, none of these people were communicating with each other. They did not have a plot or a plan to ruin my day, but there is something connected to me, something about me, which is giving me these experiences today. So the point of origin is within me. The point of origin of attracting wrong spouses is within the person, right? And so we understand that in order for us to go on this journey of self-actualization, a conversation needs to ensue between me and the face of God. And there needs to be a conversation between what's happening on my outside reality, and wake up to that reality and start making a conversation with that reality to do what? To go deep within myself, to go into the essence of my deep self. I'm going to explain that a little bit. So, what happens is that there is a intention to life. There is a destination, there is a purpose to life. The purpose to life, according to mystics, teachers, and my research and understanding, which I'm sharing with you, is self-actualization. I need to be a better version of myself. The better version of myself lies in my perfection. And my perfection lies in godliness, because God is the only being who is perfect. So the names of God are the aspects of God that I know of his perfection, which I need to emulate. I want to become like God. And in becoming like God lies my perfection. Now, many times in my life, I forget about this purpose. I forget about my destination, where I have to go, and I get distracted. And instead of keeping in mind that my main focus and my main intention was in the aspect of me, which is my deep inner spirit, which is my inner essence, which is my inner beauty, I get caught up in the outside. I get caught up in making money. I get caught up in looking pretty. I get caught up in making good friends. I get caught up in making connections. I get caught up in getting what other people have because I'm feeling jealous or envious. And I get caught up in getting a degree or a career or a house or a car or etc. etc. So people will go to big lengths to be able to, afford a lifestyle. They want to, their aim becomes to look pretty. So they'll do all kinds of supplements and plastic surgeries and all of that. Now, what happens is that Allah in his mercy wants to remind us, you know what, you got distracted, right? In the Quran, it says that this dunya is matal gurur. It's an illusion. You've gotten lost here. It's just a game. And when we get lost there, the face of God, the universe starts to speak to us to wake us up and remind us, hey, buddy, you got distracted. Come back. Come back to your intention. Your aim here was to use your faculties, your experiences in this life to become someone, to be somebody, not do something, but be. So the human part is the doing part, but the godly part is the being part. Be kind, be loving, be generous, be giving, be forgiving, right? That is your aim. Now, Oprah has this beautiful saying that I always remember, and it's been a part of my life. She says that life will start throwing little pebbles at you because the voice of life, the conversation we have with life, the way life gives us experiences is like a GPS. Okay. So when you're on your track, the GPS won't beep. It will, you're on track. You remember your intention. You're going on your straight path. But the minute you waver and you get distracted, that GPS starts to beep. And how does it beep? It starts to wake you up through some challenge in life, some burden, some difficulty. Because otherwise we don't wake up. We are in a state of slumber. We're in a state of like a nasha, like we're in that state of lost. We're in a state of oblivion, which the Quran talks about, right? That these people, they don't they see, don't they hear? It's like they're blind. It's like they're not hearing. I remember when I was a kid, and I used to visit my grandparents, and Cartoon Network had just launched its 24-hour transmission. And we were so excited that we would just not switch off the TV, because for the first time you could just watch cartoons all day long. And my grandparents had that satellite. So when we would be eating or we would be sitting with our grandparents, we were just hooked onto the screen and we would just not look anywhere. And my nana used to say, she's gone blind. She used to say she's gone deaf. They can't hear me anymore. Like they'd be talking to us, but we would be completely oblivious of what he was saying because we were so focused on the Woody Woodpecker or, whatever was coming on the TV that we would just not listen to him. Even if he was screaming, shouting, Batma, Batma, I would just be so engrossed in the television. So there is this distraction that makes us oblivious to that real voice within us. It distracts us and then we get oblivious of the reality. So what will the voice of God do? It will come to us through something that will jerk us. It will jerk us out of our oblivion and try to wake us up. Now, a person who is going to experience a difficulty in life and who is not going to be mindful enough to say, this is happening to wake me up to a message. There's a deeper message here. It's trying to tell me something about myself. There's something happening here where I need to learn something here and grow through this. What will happen is if we do that, if we wake up and if you're mindful, then that thing will dissipate. The pebbles that life is throwing at us, they're going to dissipate because now you're back on track. You're going on your path and you're moving towards your destination. But if you don't wake up and you keep blaming the outer reasonings for it, I experienced this because that person was mean. I experienced this because that person did this. I experienced this because the red light wasn't working. I experienced this because the other person was having a road rage episode. Then what is happening is that I am missing the message. I'm not hearing the voice. But if I wake up to the reality and I say, well, this difficulty has come into my life because it's trying to wake me up to a message about me, within me, then I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do something about it and learn from it and grow from it. And how does that happen is when we start to pay attention to the voices within us. And the egoic voice in times of difficulty will exasperate our panic, anxiety, and state of inner chaos. But the godly voice within us, the voice of guidance and light and peace and harmony within us, will say something which will put us to peace, but it's not necessarily the voice which makes us feel triumphant in the world. Oh, I won my fight, I won my battle, right? Because this idea of right and wrong, an idea of winning a battle, is a very egoic idea. Now, the mystics, when they tell us to say, I am that, they're saying it because in reality, you and I, as human beings, we are also the face of God. And there is no other reality other than God. That means then that each one of us is connected by a deeper root connection of this life force that makes us part of one reality. And the communication that we're receiving from the outer reality, whether through other human beings, whether through a flower, whether through a road incident, whether through anything, it's all part of the same story. It's all speaking to me. And when I can go within myself by observing what is happening outside of me, then I'm truly able to communicate with the face of God, with this beauty that God is trying to show us. And we can keep growing in our own deep inner beauty and beautification of our character and the beautification of our inner essence. Now, when I had said that when the spirit touches matter, it blooms, I want to share something that I experienced recently. And what I experienced is that when some difficulty comes in our life, some whales need to be worked on. A whale comes over our heart and it needs to be worked on. So I was going through something difficult recently, and I was in a lot of inner anxiety and inner chaos. There was a lack of clarity. I didn't know what to do. I was in a lot of pain. And we all go through these situations, these ups and downs keep coming where the panic and anxiety kicks in. And I think more so in people of my age or younger, I can see a very beautiful calmness on Nasimanti's face because, as you grow older, you get calmer, all of these things settle down. So, you're in every way eligible to correct me if I don't get it right. But what I was explaining is this experience that I had where I was going through a lot of anxiety about a situation and I didn't have the clarity. I didn't know what to do. And, we keep saying this, like I can keep saying, hear the voice of God, hear the voice of God, but it's not that simple. So for a long time, you're asking God to guide you and you want to understand and you want to know what should be my next step and all of that. Now, why I'm saying that when the spirit touches matter is what I want to touch upon here, is that the voice of God is the voice of goodness. It is not necessarily the voice that makes you look like a winner in the outer world, but it will surely be the voice of as-salam, the voice of peace. And last week, I read out that poetry where I said that surrendering on the battlefield is obviously defeat, because when one party is no longer able to defend itself or fight, they say we surrender. And that's taken as defeat. It's the white flag. We surrender, right? So surrender in the outer reality will always look like a defeat. But surrendering on the inner side of our reality gives us peace because we hand over this control that we're feeling over the situation, that I need to do something. We hand it over to a higher reality and we surrender and we say, it's really not in my hands. So I surrender to the flow of life. I surrender to God. But even in that surrendering, you need a clarity. What are you surrendering to? What does it mean? Are you even ready to surrender? Because sometimes when you're not ready to surrender, it activates the ego even more. You feel defeated. So now you want to go and take a revenge of that defeat. How dare you defeat me, right? And that's why we're such complicated beings if we choose to keep ourselves complicated. But when we want to make it simple, all we need to do is, start taking some time on our own, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour every day to sit alone in silence and breathe and just find a space where there is no human interruption and you can just really be with yourself. And then try to notice through meditative practice or through just sitting and watching your thoughts and through breathing. What are the thoughts that give you peace? And sometimes giving up on the outside will give us the peace we're looking for. It's giving us the peace, we can recognize it. We're just not ready to receive that peace. So, to pray to Allah that Allah enable me to make the right choice, to hear the right voice. And what happens is when we allow this goodness, this voice of goodness, this voice of peace and tranquility to overpower this voice of anxiety, which is the voice of fighting, which is the voice of winning, which is the voice of saying, I need to be right, and how can I be the one to be blamed, and all of that. When this voice of peace can finally take over the voice of anxiety, then the voice of goodness is the voice of God. And again, Dr. Wayne Dyer would say what feels good is godly, because God is good. Because when you're feeling good, you're feeling God. Okay? So feeling good deep within ourselves is a state of deep serenity and peace within us. And a lot of times it is important to allow the spirit to touch us, allow this voice of goodness, allow the voice of God to touch us so that we can truly feel this inner beauty again. Because in the chaos, in the fight within us, we lose track of our inner peace. Because there's a constant battle going on, the thoughts are rushing, there's panic, there's anxiety, there's a need to win, there's a need to be right, there's a need to. And one of the biggest and deepest feelings of anxiety and pain happen when we feel like if I surrender and if I let go, people are going to walk all over me like a doormat. I'll be used. I'll be taken for granted because this is a dog eat dog world and nobody respects anybody and we have to fight for our right, and you don't just get what you want, right? And it's so interesting. Okay, so I think I'm inspired to share this, and it's very connected. But while I'm talking, these things come and I try to hold on to them, and then I want to share this and that, and I just get lost. So this universe that's talking to us, it's giving us messages. Challenges come to make us go inside. When we go inside, we hear these voices. We hear our thoughts. We hear good voice. We hear the bad voice. We hear the dark voice. We hear the voice that gives us light and luminosity and makes us feel happy. And when we go into listening to that voice of peace, listening to the godly voice, we get touched by the spirit. So what I was telling you about my own experience is that there was a phase where I was very anxious. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided me towards this inner voice. I was asking Allah, I'm really anxious. Can you please help me? Can you please guide me? And then, I started listening to a lecture and something shifted. And then I did zikr, just sat with myself alone, started watching my thoughts, and things start to spark and show themselves up, right? And I started to find the beauty in choosing peace, the beauty in choosing the good, the godly voice. Now, what happened when I did that work and I decided that I'm going to listen to these particular talks every single day, I'm going to journal my thoughts every day, I'm going to write down all my negative thoughts and I'm going to burn them, and I'm going to practice positive affirmations, I'm going to do my zikr, and I'm going to make it part of my everyday routine. Because recently, my solo show for my art exhibition just opened, and I suddenly realized that I was so caught up with finishing all my work that I was not taking the time to do this inner work. So my soul was famished and it needed that nourishment. And so you see that in the outer world, even though my art exhibition was all about God and zikr and everything, it became so world focused on the outer that somewhere I lost my inner grounding, somewhere I lost my inner deep connection. And then this anxiety and this outer situation, which looked so big and so painful and so exhausting, came into my life until blaming they just didn't help, until doing everything on the outside wasn't helping. And I got so helpless and tired that I told God, you know what? Okay, man, I give up. Can you please just guide me what's going on? And God guided me. And I was like, God, I don't like it when you tell me it was all about me. I was hurting myself. I don't want to hear that. It would have been so nice for once to hear that somebody else was at fault, right? Because the ego likes to hear that. But the if we take the blame away from others outside of us, we also take away their power to hurt us. And when we take the control and power within ourselves, and I'm the one responsible, if I'm the one hurting myself, I can quickly take away my hurt too, right? So outer pain is inevitable, but inner suffering is in my hands. And that empowers us. It gives us that power to completely switch out of our victim mode, our pain mode, and all of that. Now, what happened is that when I started doing this work, I started to feel a lot lighter. I felt like a burden had lifted. I felt more empowered, more at peace, calmer, joyful. I was not snapping or, all of that. And my daughter was sitting with me. I was doing homework with her, and she turns to me and she says, Mama, you look and feel really light, and you look really happy and joyful right now. And I said, really? And she said, yeah. And you know what I feel? I said, tell me. And she's like, I felt like you were caught up in something and now you're released. And now you're like a different person. It's like something has left you, you know? And it honestly made me feel like, when we recite Surah Nas and Falak, and we say we don't want demonic effects on us, and we don't want these negative energies, demonic energies to affect us. So we read Surah Nas and Falak so they leave us. Once a friend told me that when we talk about negative energies, these are energies in motion, and energies in motion are emotions. Emotions, they're energies in motion, and they overcome us. And we get caught up in these emotions of self-pity and anger and revenge and jealousy and envy and all of that. And when we can catch ourselves and do this inner work, we rid ourselves of this dark emotion. And it's as if we become freed from the clutches of our own darkness. If we can catch the good voice and the bad voice, if we can differentiate between the voice that gives us peace and the voice that creates anxiety within us. And like I said, all good is God, and God is the spirit. And when we allow the spirit to touch us and take over us, we bloom. So my daughter felt like mom is suddenly joyful. Mom is blooming. Mom is happy, right? When you're happy, you're alive. You're living your life. You're thriving. So in order to create beauty and to be beauty and to live a life of beauty, then it means that the power lies within us to choose beauty, to choose the beautiful Jamal of God within us, to use the beautiful voice of God within us, the goodness within us. I was listening to a lecture on beauty, and the lecturer was explaining how in Greek there's a word which is something like tolikrin or something. I'm missing the word. I'll try and look for it. It's a word for beauty. And in Greek, this word for beauty also means goodness. Anything good, wholesome good. And so when we choose this good within us, we choose beauty within us. We're choosing life within us. We're choosing light over darkness within us. And this life, this beauty within us helps us bloom and thrive. And just to close my session, whatever we are within is what we're going to see outside. That's why when we're seeing chaos outside, there's a chaos that needs attention within us. If we're seeing pain outside, there's a pain that needs our attention within us. So when I say pain, we need our own forgiveness sometimes. We need our own affection sometimes. We need our own compassion towards ourselves sometimes, and not be hard on ourselves. So whatever we will experience on the outside, it is merely a mirror of the inner world. And whatever we will create on the inside, the universe is simply going to mirror it for us. And that's why teachers say that joy is the highest vibration. Joy is the highest state. To be happy, because a mystic or a lover of God is on the inside always in a state of joy, because they have nothing to worry, because they know everything is in the hands of God. And biyadikal khair, everything is in the hands of God, and everything in God's hands is good. I don't need to worry. My life is in his hands, my soul is in his hands, my children are in his hands, my work, my earning, everything is in his hands. So whatever will happen on the outside will be good. And if everything is in his hands and it's going to be good, I don't need to worry. So they'll be in a state of joy. When we're in a state of joy within, and we consciously choose joy and joyful states within us, while there is pain outside, we choose not to suffer and we choose to create joy within us, then the universe will live up to that reflection. It will come up to that level. It will begin to reflect joy to us. And they say that when we're in a state of joy, when we're in a state of surrender, when we're in a state of tawakkul, then in that state, we can manifest anything in our lives, anything good in our lives, because whatever happens in a high vibration, it manifests easily, quickly. And that's because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is good. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is joy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is happiness, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not darkness. He is light. He is hope. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Abdi atani liktakuni misli, oh my servant, worship me, obey me, and become like me. And then he says, litakuni misli aw misli kun fayakun. When you become like me and you say kun, it will be fayakun. In a state of joy, we become the creators of our life, because we are not going to get affected. We are going to do conscious work, mindful work, in not letting the outside dictate to me my inner state, but that I will let my inner state come to a level of joy. I become the curator of my inner reality, and then I stay in a state of joy no matter what is happening on the outside, and then I create the outer reality. And just one example of the Holy Prophet, we see that he was always in a state of shukr and sabr and gratitude. He always thought good about other people. He never kept malice in his heart. He helped his enemies. He forgave. So what we see is this orphan who's constantly being challenged and affected by the burdens of losing his loved ones again and again, is not getting bitter. He's not allowing his heart to get bitter. He's constantly forgiving, constantly growing, constantly choosing love over hate. So when the Prophet stayed in a state of joy and hope constantly in the face of tribulations and turmoil and trials in his life, we see that the end of his life, the Prophet is the biggest statesman, the biggest politician. He's transformed this massive society. He is the ruler of one of the biggest empires. He is a religious leader. He's a political leader. He is everything. when he goes from this world. He has created a world of joy and completeness and wholeness because he was whole within, he was joy within, he was goodness within, right? Shukr alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. And so just to see the beauty, the Prophet created beauty within, and his inner beauty created outer beauty. He chose life, so he brought life to the society that was dead on the outside. This was Hayy in action. And through beauty, we see that Bibi Zainab alayhi salam says, Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. Through beauty, Bibi Zainab brought life to dead hearts by choosing goodness, by choosing beauty over goodness, or goodness, choosing good opinion of God, choosing beauty over darkness. She brought life to a whole nation that was dead. So we put our hands up for dua. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, we come to you. We come to you with all that we carry within ourselves of light and dark, of ugliness and beauty, of the crumbs that we have collected on the way in our journey. Some serve us, some don't. Oh Allah, lighten our burden. Enable us to let go of everything that we do not need to carry on. Oh Allah, enable us to forgive all whom we need to forgive for ourselves, for our own lightness, for our own luminosity, for our own journey. Help us let go of the burden of the vengefulness we keep in our heart, the resentments that we keep in our heart, the animosities we keep in our heart, the hurt that we keep in our hearts. Oh Allah, enable us to let go of all of that, and so that we only and only keep beauty in our hearts, so that we only and only keep your light in our hearts. Oh Allah, Ya Rabbal Alameen.